Hey everyone, welcome back. Today I want to showcase a triple origin form team using Dialga, Palkia, and Giratina. While this is a triple dragon team, you might expect it to be very fairy type Pokemon, but I have a lot of play into them. As you'll see in today's video, even double charm teams have nowhere to go. If you want to see my battles live, I stream almost every day at twitch.tv/ItsAXN. I'd love to see you there. But without further ado, let's get into the battles and see what this team can do. Alright, getting right on into game number one. Giratina in the lead up against a Kyogre. We have three dragons. Kyogre is no threat here, but it's going to come down to what the backline's going to be. And it seems like, I'm going to have to put my money where my mouth is. Can we beat Charmers with this team? In comes the Primarina safe swap here. I go for the Shadow Ball. As you can tell, I'm actually not in that bad of a situation with our Giratina against this Charm user. I can reach two Shadow Balls if they want to shield, and if they no shield, then I can also just almost one-shot them with that Shadow Ball and get the Shadow Claw down here. The thing is, I'm expecting a second Fairy-type Pokemon in the backline. If that is the case, then I think we're going to have to keep getting shields down if possible. In comes that second Charmer here, but we have another Shadow Ball ready to go. If I draw the shield, then our Dialga can go for Iron Heads. If we don't get the shield, we can probably fast move down even with Dragon Breath damage. They end up shielding their Togekiss, so we have switch advantage. We have the ability to get our Palkia as well against that Kyogre, which is fantastic right now. We reach the Iron Head against this Togekiss. The worst case scenario at this point would be them going for an Ancient Power, getting a boost, and then potentially reverse sweeping this game, but they end up letting the Iron Head go as well. Even if they would have shielded that, though, we could have got to another Iron Head against them. We could have gone for a Palkia against the Kyogre, and there'd be nowhere for them to run. In comes the Kyogre here. We're going to go for the Spatial Rend when we can, but we are down shields, so if they do have Blizzard, they can do quite a bit of damage to us, actually. So I'm going to come in, try to throw this move, either get a shield or get the KO against this Kyogre. What do they want to do here against us? They end up shielding the Spatial Rend, and now I'm going to try to reach another one, but we don't quite reach it in time. This Blizzard won't quite one-shot us from this range, but it's going to come very close, put us all the way to the red, one or two waterfalls away from getting knocked out. We don't barely get to that move, but I still have my Dialga alive. We're not going to get knocked out by a Surf. If they reach a Blizzard, so be it. They're not going to be able to, though. I know for a fact this thing takes so long to get to a charge move. This is just going to be a Surf, and I can farm this down, go for either an Iron Head, or even better, Dragon Breath down the Togekiss, and win against Double Charm. GG's to our opponent. Next game, we're going to see Giratina up against Zygarde Complete. Probably one of the worst-case scenario lead matchups. I'm going to swap into my Palkia here, and they respond with a Zacian. This is looking terrible for us right now. We do have our Dialga that could potentially match up into that Zygarde later on this game, and I know that Palkia is actually pretty decent in this matchup. Not going to ever really win it, but I can likely get shields down, potentially make it so there's not going to be a two-shield Zygarde in the backline, which is always very annoying. I'm going to shield the first attack up. Hopefully it's a debuffing move, but no, they are running Play Rough, which is going to do super effective damage. It would knock us out if we let that go, so a good thing we do end up shielding that attack. Aqua Tail is going to come through. I'm going to undercharge just in case they no shield, so I can double shield and get a huge farm down, but if they want to shield that up, that is going to be fine as well. The next Aqua Tail will likely knock them out. That last one probably wouldn't have just yet, but my Dragon Breaths are adding up despite being very resisted here by this Fairy-type Pokemon. I'm going to go for the Aqua Tail once again, hopefully draw the next shield from this Pokemon, and if I can get shields down, I'm hoping at this point that I can invest in my Dialga and potentially sweep this game. They're going to throw a charge move here. I'm in range of potentially a close combat or a wild charge knocking me out. Our opponent realizes that they throw that rather than the higher energy move, but they end up lowering their defense stat by doing that. I think I can get a full Dragon Breath down with our Dialga here. That is fantastic news. In comes the Necrozma now. This is going to be very awkward depending on the moveset. I'm going to try to make a very risky play, catching a move on Giratina. I think at this point Dialga is our win condition, so I'm going to invest in that later on. Outrage comes through and does a massive amount of damage, but we do end up surviving the attack. Can we just Shadow Ball? Just barely before getting Dragon Tail down, we do, and I do have a Draco Meteor, or rather a Roar of Time, on my Dialga right now. I can go for the Shadow Ball. That'll put them easily into range where I know a Roar of Time will knock them out. I reach it, and it's going to be a race to a charge move against that Necrozma right now. Can I reach a Roar of Time, or is a Roar of Time even going to be enough to knock out the Steel-type Pokemon? This is going to be a very close endgame. They likely reach the Outrage right before my Roar of Time. I'm going to hopefully survive this move, though. It's going to be so close. If Dialga can survive this, this is going to be insane. Ends up surviving on 1 HP. We reach the Roar of Time, getting the knockout against this Necrozma. I hope so, at least. Let's see. Is this enough? It just barely is. Roar of Time is one of the strongest moves in the game, despite being resisted, able to knock out that Necrozma there. GG's to our opponent. Next game, a Landorus in lead. A much better lead than we've been seeing here, but I'm going to try our best to just kind of soft lose this matchup. I know a lot of the time they're going to shield the first Shadow Ball, but even if they want to no-shield it, that's a lot of neutral damage with the Shadow Claws and Shadow Balls that I'm getting into them. They do outpace us to debuffs with these Stance Storms, but that's fine. I know that I have a lot of fast move and charge move pressure nonetheless. Do they want to shield this attack up? They end up letting it go, which is actually really nice, because even if they ever take out my Giratina now, I can easily fast move them down with either my Dialga or with my Palkia. And I know after seeing a safe swap here with the Zacian, this might be a strange play, but I kind of have to swap out. I was deep up with my attack stat, so I want to make sure that I can bring in my Steel type. It is a Dragon type, but it's still a Steel type, so I can potentially either draw shields from the Zacian or get a knockout if they want to let this go. They end up not having close combat, which is fantastic for us to see. Just a play rough which we can easily survive. They will reach another one here, but Dialga is not actually as bad in this matchup as you might seem, because these quick attacks are not doing anything to us. They're never going to fast move us down. We end up shielding up a player up here, and we reach the Iron Head now. I still have a Shadow Ball loaded on our Giratina. I might be able to swap back in at some point and throw that against this thing, potentially getting that last shield, or getting the KO if they want to shield up that Iron Head. What is my opponent going to do? I swap in. Apparently, though, Giratina does end up losing CMP. I'm going to have to shield up this attack, but at the very least, this was a CMP on a Wild Charge. I guess I could have no-shielded that, but I was expecting a player up to come through there. This will do a massive amount of damage. This will definitely knock out after that debuff to this Zacian. There is still going to be that Landorus in the backline, which is actually going to be a little tricky, because I think they sort of full on Stone Edge in the backline, and this Palkia is going to get a massive farm down against us. Shadow Ball is going to come through, do a lot of damage, despite just being neutral. I'm going to soak all the energy I can with my Dialga, and potentially my Palkia can sweep the backline. I have a bit of energy, so they're going to have to throw an Aqua Tail very soon against us, which is exactly what they end up doing, and now as long as I can farm down this Palkia before they can reach a Spatial Rend, I should be able to win this game. We just have to hope at this point they don't reach a big charge move. They don't, but they have some energy on Landorus. Is it going to be enough to knock us out? No, we can reach the Aqua Tail before back-to-back Sandsear Storms will be reached, and even if they did have back-to-back Sandsear, I'm not sure if it would be quite enough from this range. It'd be very close, though, so GG's to our opponent. Next matchup here, Giratina up against Yveltal. Okay, well, this is about as bad of a lead as it really gets. We don't really have an Yveltal counter. We have a lot of neutral play with our backline, but especially if we're going to see a Landorus as a counter swap into a Dialga, this is looking very bad. With that said, I know Dialga is kind of stupid. It can actually win the Zero Shield matchup here. All I have to do is go for the Roar of Time. Even though I'm debuffed, it will still be more than enough to knock out this Pokemon. Roar of Time coming through. Do they end up shielding their Landorus? Very squishy Pokemon. They do end up shielding. That's normally how I play it out as well, so it makes sense for them to do that. I'm going to absorb all the energy I can with our Giratina and just hope that the backline matchup is not going to be terrible for a Palkia right now. They end up going for a Sandsear. It makes sense. They want to lower my attack stat as much as they can, and hopefully they're going to not reach another one, but no, I guess at this point I just want to overfarm. That also makes sense to have a little bit of energy. I know Shadow Ball's not going to do a lot of damage to Yveltal, but I might as well get the energy there and go for an ambitious farm down against that Landorus here. In comes our Palkia into the Necrozma, and I am seeing a little bit of play here. There is still going to be that Yveltal in the backline, and there is a chance that that Landorus can still get to a move against us, so that could be a little bit bad, but I know this matchup isn't terrible. I have shield advantage, energy advantage, and Palkia should be able to brute force its way through this steel type Pokemon. Dark Pulse ends up coming through. I have to shield it up because it could have been an outrage, but at this point I have to kind of shield everything. I'm so low on both of my Pokemon, and I know that Yveltal in the backline is going to be a big problem if I don't take care of it soon. They do shield up their Necrozma here. They're going to get to another charge attack. I don't know if I can quite farm them all the way down here. I'm going to have to try, though, if I want any chance of winning this game, but they end up hard swapping to their Yveltal now. I have the Spatial Rend. I have the Shadow Ball. I know Spatial Rend will not knock them out. They have a little bit of energy here. I'm going to snipe down their energy with the Shadow Ball here loaded on Giratina. I have to hope that I can fast move down everything in this game if I want any chance of winning. If the Landorus doesn't get to a move, I know I guaranteed win this game, but if they reach a Sandsear Storm, this is going to be very close. They reach a charge attack at the last second before the Shadow Claw knocks them out. Now, Palkia is going to have to try to Dragon Breath everything down in the rest of this game. Is this Necrozma going to get to a charge move? Come on, can I do it? Just barely. They survive on 1 HP, nearly overcoming one of the worst possible leads, but still, it was a good game. GG's to our opponent. All right, next match, the Lord of the Distortion World up against the Kyogre. Fantastically, we've been talking about how we have so much play against this Pokemon. In the back, going to be a Tapu Lele. It's a good thing they swapped that in here. Our backline actually is pretty weak to this Pokemon, so a good thing our Ghost type is against this fake Ghost type. They're using Astonish as their fast attack, but they're also a Psychic type, so our Shadow Claws are doing super effective damage. We actually get not only a shield with that Ominous Wind, but a boost, boosting both our attack and our defense stat, both by 1 stage. They go for Nature's Madness to lower my defense, but my attack is still going to be boosted here. We're going to go for another Ominous Wind. This will either knock out or draw the final shield. They let it go at this point, and now what do? Do they bring back in their Kyogre, or do they show us the final Pokemon before we even need to swap out of this lead? They end up coming with a Charmer, a little bit of an awkward Pokemon to see, but I know Dialga, or Giratina rather, is so bulky that I can reach this move and then come in Dialga after drawing the shield, or potentially one-shotting this with the Shadow Ball. They do end up shielding that up, but the Shadow Claws have done so much damage that at this point they are in Iron Head range, and I have my Palkia as well, which is in a very good spot. I know the Kyogre is their final Pokemon, so shielding this move up is going to be a very safe play. If they ever come in with Kyogre, I'm going to be able to swap out to Palkia and go for the, Or do we just stay in here? Do we have a Roar of Time? No, we... Okay, I guess that makes sense too. We catch the Surf. I was kind of expecting a Roar of Time there for just a second, but I like this play as well. Just a show of dominance of this triple dragon team against this Kyogre. At this point, we have an Iron Head loaded. We're going to have so much energy on our Palkia, and I don't want to take potential Blizzard or anything, but I know they're not going to reach it. The worst it could be is like a Thunder at this point. I think we can still get a full Dragon Breath down, go for a Spatial Rend against the Primarina, and put them easily into range where I know an Iron Head will knock out. Fun fact, this actually does do a little bit more raw damage than the Aqua Tail, despite being immune tier resisted rather than just single resisted, but our opponent realizes that at that point there's not much for the Primarina to do. We end up winning that game. Next game, up against another Landorus in the lead. We're going to try our best to win this neutral matchup and just take it out so our Dialga doesn't really have to deal with this, but we're going to see how they play it out. They CMP us, likely going to be a Sandsear Storm once again. They want to lower our attack stats so we don't one-shot them. It is going to be that Sandsear, but luckily Giratina is decently bulky, right? Despite not winning a lot of CMPs, we're going to be able to take these charge moves. I can take another Sandsear Storm if they want to stay in, and if they want to swap out, we'll have to watch and see what they bring in. They do end up staying in and CMPing us here. If this isn't a Stone Edge, there's no chance it knocks us out, and if it is a Sandsear Storm for sure and we no shield, we get this move off on CMP. This will either put them into Dragon Breath downrange for our Palkia and our Dialga, or get the second shield. They end up letting that go, and now, actually, I think I might even get to another move. They end up coming in Primarina. A little bit of an awkward Pokemon to see, but we have a shield advantage. We've done so much to that Landorus as well that I think we're going to be in a decent spot as long as we play our cards right this game. They end up having Charm as well. I've seen a lot of people running Charm Primarina. I've seen a few people running Waterfall. Waterfall is much easier for our team to take down, but Charm is going to be the Pokemon that our Dialga has to face into. Our Palkia wants nothing to do with this matchup. They bait a Hydro Cannon here. Good play by them. I did get off an Ominous Wind and a few Shadow Claws as well on this Primarina before my Dialga, or my Giratina rather, went down before swapping into my Dialga, which means that this Iron Head should probably knock them out at this point. And if they come in with anything, we're going to go for the Roar of Time, try to either get the shield or whittle them all the way down here. If they no-shield this is almost going to be a one-shot. Our opponent making the call that our backline is weak to Landorus. That is a bad call to make because we have the Palkia in the backline. They were not expecting me to be 88 weak to Dialga. I'll take it. GG's to them. All right, next game, a Dialga. We were just talking about you. I'm ABA weak to this Pokemon, a bit of a tricky matchup, but I have Shadow Claw and Shadow Ball damage that, as you're going to see, does do a sizable chunk to this Dialga. If they want to shield this, then also I'll have a shield advantage going into the backline. A lot of the times when they see you stay in a bad matchup like that, they're like, man, I probably want to save some health on our Dialga, which is a good play because my Palkia and my Giratina both would prefer for that Shadow Ball to have landed by now. They bait us with an Iron Head, that's fine, but they're staying in this matchup, which is kind of interesting at this point. What the heck? Who would swap out to a Kyogre against a Dialga? That is a crazy play. I'm going to overfarm as much as possible here, throw the Roar of Time. If they no-shield this, this is just going to one-shot this Pokemon. Honestly, at this point, they must know there's no play for their Kyogre. They just let it completely go down. I wish our Palkia could have locked into that, but, you know, at this point, Dialga is very happy with what it's done. They bring in a Palkia here too? What is even happening right now? I guess, man, I should have gone for the Roar of Time here. I'm going to go for the Iron Head bait, though. Let's see what they're going to do. They end up letting it go, and now do I get the farm down? Just barely. No, they farm us down instead. This is going to be a bit of a tricky scenario, actually. I've kind of misplayed this game. I might end up losing this, especially if they get to a charge move here. Okay, well, this could be bad. There's still that Dialga with a lot of energy on it. I probably should have thrown the Roar of Time guaranteed a shield. I'm surprised they would have no-shield their Palkia. I tried to catch a Roar of Time on our Giratina, but now I've given them a perfect amount of farm on our Giratina with their Dialga. How did I throw this game? We were in such a good spot, but now I think we just threw this one. They have a Roar of Time on their Dialga. I could have won this if I played it out a little bit smarter, but unfortunately for me, I was just kind of, I guess, stuck in my head with one-shotting the Kyogre. I kind of forgot to play the rest of the game. All right, next matchup, we're going to see what our Giratina can do up against, I guess, another Dialga lead. Hopefully we can come back from it this time. We're going to do the same play, though. Go for the Shadow Ball instantly. Try to either draw a shield or do a lot of damage to them and see how they want to play out this matchup. Shadow Ball coming through. Our opponent has a decision to make. Do they want a shield or do they let it go? Once again, getting a shield here. I'm going to swap to my Dialga once again to try to make them throw energy here. I would be very happy if I shield up a Roar of Time. It's likely going to be an Iron Head bait, but I don't want to take the risk because I know our Dialga is our best answer to that. In comes a Mewtwo here as well. Very good matchup for us. I'm going to throw the Roar of Time, but the game was a little bit bad with the animations, so I threw on CMP rather than one turn before, so that is going to be slightly suboptimal here. We end up CMPing the Roar of Time. I'm going to try to get a little undercharge here. I don't know quite how much I need to undercharge. That still knocks out. Okay, Mewtwo is just so squishy. We took the Dragon Breath, though, or the what's it called, Ice Beam rather, on our Dialga before going down, but we're not going to be in that bad of a spot. We end up coming back in with our Giratina. We're going to force them to throw energy here as well, and this is going to be a much more manageable range for our Palkia or our Dialga to take down here. In comes the Iron Head. Palkia going to try to get the farm down, but this is going to be a very tricky matchup. We can go for the Aqua Tail before they reach a charge move. Are they going to shield up their Dialga at this point? If they do, that's a huge tell that they're weak to Palkia in the back line. Looks like they will. Okay, well, if you're shielding, I might as well shield. I can get to a Spatial Band likely against most things in the back line, or at the very least an Aqua Tail, and hopefully our Dialga in the backline is going to have a lot of play. Well, there it is. They are triple weak to our dragons here. Well, not triple weak. They're Kyogre, rather, triple weak to us, so they have nowhere to go for this Pokemon. They were just hoping that our final pick was not another Dragon type. In comes that Spatial Band. Doesn't quite one-shot them, but it does so much damage that it puts them into farm down range. We can farm down this Dialga. We had an Aqua Tail, but I can just also go for the Dragon Breath here to take them down. All right, next game, we're going to see Giratina in the lead up against a Shadow Rhyperior. Okay, one of the trickier matchups for this team, but I know that we can survive at least one Breaking Swipe. We can either get shields from this thing or a lot of damage with Shadow Ball as well. I'm going to go for an Ominous Wind bait. We reach the move before them. They likely want to shield this. Try to go for debuffs before we get the next Shadow Ball here. Let's see what our opponent wants to do. They throw on good timing. Could be a Rock Wrecker potentially, but I'm going to call that it's going to be a bait here. Breaking Swipe does end up coming through, does a lot of damage, gets a debuff, and now they reach another one. This is a very awkward situation to be in, because if I shield this move up and I get another debuff, then the next Shadow Ball is going to do nothing. So I'm just going to let that go. Come in Palkia, try to CMP them on this Aqua Tail here, and see if we're going to have any play this game. They end up going and trying to catch a move on their Florges, though. This is a little bit awkward, but potentially playable depending on their final Pokemon this game. I come in Dialga. I know Dialga isn't exactly the best answer to Florges, but I don't really have an answer to this with this whole team. This is probably the worst Pokemon this team could really see. Moonblast does a lot of damage to us right now, but we do survive it quite easily. Another move coming through, likely going to be a Disarming Voice this time. I know I can survive it. It's not super effective, but we don't have much fast food pressure into them. We have the Iron Head loaded right about now. We actually have almost two. Do they want to shield this up? I think that might have been a CMP. We'll see what our opponent has in the backline to see if we have any play right now. Iron Head does end up landing, and if we can, we'll swap out to Palkia. They don't quite let us, so they come in with their own Palkia. I'm going to fully send the charge move right now. I have to hope that they're going to no-shield this attack. If they do, we can win this game. They shield the attack. That's a 50-50 call. Unfortunately, I do get it wrong. They get the Dragon Breath damage way too much for us to overcome. Their GG's to our opponent. All right, next game, a Fairy type in the lead, although you have to keep in mind, this is a Grass and Fairy type. They have Grass type fast food pressure, and despite having a Fairy type charge move, it's not going to one-shot us. Our Shadow Claws and Shadow Balls are going to rip apart this Tapu Bulu's health, that is, and hopefully make it so that our backline does not have to deal with one of the worst matchups it could possibly see. I was watching there, they were not doing a fast move. I think they were trying to catch a Shadow Ball, and I made sure to keep doing fast moves until I saw something try to catch the attack, and it was going to be this Yveltal. At this point, I know I don't need switch advantage against that Tapu Bulu. I just need to take this Pokemon out so our Giratina doesn't have to see it. We have almost double Aqua Tails here. I'm going to throw the first one. If they want to no-shield this, they can definitely be my guest. I'm going to reach the second in just a second here, right before they reach their next charge move, and I want to take as much fast food pressure as I can to give that Tapu Bulu less farm. In comes this next Aqua Tail. Do they shield? No, they're just content letting their Yveltal go at this point. Likely going to see a Tapu Bulu farm down, but we have so much energy left over on our Giratina. We can do one more Shadow Claw, throw the Shadow Ball, and throw our next Shadow Ball shortly after. We're almost at 100 energy right now, so I will have to dump this energy into this Bulu. They end up shielding, which is a very interesting play by our opponent. How weak do you have to be to Giratina to shield that attack? Maybe it's like a Kyogre in the backline, maybe some, I don't even know, something else that could be weak to it. Maybe like a Rhyperior would be kind of bad at this point. We'll throw another Shadow Ball. Do they want to shield this attack up? Shadow Ball going to land against this Tapu Bulu. In the backline, going to see a Primarina. This is the Waterfall variant of Primarina, though. Luckily, a much easier moveset to deal with our Dragon types. Shadow Ball going to draw that shield. We can come in with our Dialga now. Even if they have Moonblast, they're not going to one-shot us. We end up taking the game there. GG's to our opponent. Giratina up against that Kyogre lead, the best lead that we could possibly see. What does our opponent do? They instantly swap out to a Dialga, and I know at this point, I don't really need switch advantage. I just need to neutralize this Dialga to make sure that we can have a lot of play with our backline Pokemon. I'm going to shield this up. I know it could be a Roar of Time, but I'm totally fine shielding an Iron Head as well. We're going to throw the Roar of Time of our own right now, because I want to guarantee a shield from this thing. I know they might be able to reach a second Iron Head if they no-shield mine, so I want to go for the guaranteed shield back from them right now. Roar of Time does end up drawing the shield, and now we're in a very interesting spot where, I mean, I could just let this go now, right? I'm not that worried about switch advantage against a Kyogre. I could just get a huge energy lead with either my Palkia or my Giratina, and I think that energy on Giratina could be a little bit more useful just in case there's a Charmer farmer in the backline. In comes the Giratina. We're going to go for a full Shadow Claw down, and they don't quite reach a move right before we reach that attack. What does my opponent bring in right now? If it's the Kyogre, that is a huge read right now. If it's the final Pokemon, which is going to be the Primarina with Charm, then it's going to be such a huge thing that we got that big farm down with our Giratina. Shadow Ball ends up drawing that first shield. Can I reach another one before getting farmed down here? Looks like we can. We watch for the catch once again in the backline. Going to be that Kyogre that we saw in the lead, and since we have that Shadow Ball loaded, all I have to do now is chip down that Primarina with either a Spatial Rend or maybe an Aqua Tail, and then win this game with that Shadow Ball in the backline. In comes a Thunder here, actually, from the Kyogre. Does a lot of damage to us, but not enough to really make us worry about getting knocked out by the Waterfalls. Waterfall being extremely resisted by the Water and Dragon-type Pokemon. Spatial Rend gonna come through and knock out this Kyogre. In comes that Primarina. We can go instantly for the Spatial Rend, and we have that Shadow Ball, as I said, in the backline, plus a shield after this Spatial Rend that is going to be more than enough damage to put them into Shadow Ball range. We're going to throw it instantly just in case a Charm would knock us out, but I think at this point we probably would survive a Charm, so I could have thrown one Shadow Claw to throw on proper timing, but it doesn't matter if you throw on good timing if you KO your opponent's Pokemon. Alright, next game we're going to see a Rhyperior, Shadow Rhyperior once again, a very tricky lead matchup, honestly just a very tricky matchup for our whole team. Mud Slap and this Breaking Swipe coverage is just such good coverage against our whole team composition here. I'm going to go once again though for an Ominous Wind bait, see if I can draw that shield out from them, and it looks like once again we are able to get that shield. They throw on slightly suboptimal timing, but they are back-to-back Breaking Swipes right now, so if they throw them both, then I know I'm just going to let my Giratina go, especially if they keep getting these freaking Breaking Swipe debuffs. That's so annoying right now. The first one always seems to debuff me, and I'm just going to have to let our Giratina go and hope that our backline can overcome whatever their backline might be. We end up, I think we might have actually lagged a turn coming in here, so we don't even get the opportunity to CMP this Aqua Tail, which is a little bit frustrating, but I know at this point there's a chance that our Dialga is going to have a lot of play once we take out this Rhyperior, so I'm going to no-shield that actually on our Palkia, be fine being 2 shields to 1, just having Dialga in the backline. In the back going to be okay, that's going to be potentially winnable. A Palkia and a Ho-Oh. This could get a little bit awkward, though, depending on if they get a Sacred Fire debuff here. We don't quite reach the Roar of Time before they reach this attack, so if they get a debuff, 50% chance here, that would be big trouble. They don't end up getting the debuff, which is huge for us. Roar of Time going to come through. If they let this go, we're in a fantastic spot where we Dragon Breath down the Palkia. If they shielded that, I think I could have gone and farmed them down eventually in the 2-shield matchup. So they did have to opt to let that go. They come back in Palkia, and it's going to be a race to the finish. Can I Dragon Breath them all the way down before they can reach 2 Aqua Tails and Dragon Breath down both my Dialga and my Palkia? Looks like they cannot. We get to win that game, just barely overcoming that team with our triple Dragon team comp. Honestly, this is not going to be the best team out there, but it did have a lot more coverage than I thought it would. You can see we got a 5-0 to end the day, ending off once again in the top 100 of the leaderboard. This team had way more play than I was expecting it to. I just wanted to throw something together with, 3 Origin Form Pokemon. That's kind of cool, right? But I guess it's not just cool, it also kind of works. Alright, well, thank you so much for watching today's video. I stream my battles live basically every day at twitch.tv/ItsAXN. So if you want to see live insights in my gameplay, make sure to check me out there. Also, I'm going to upload a lot more to the channel, so if you want to see more videos like this, please make sure to subscribe. Thank you again for watching, take care, and I'll see you in the next one.